this is really conscious creation. Okay, my life is the way it is, and I want X. And X can be anything. X can be security, money, happiness. It can be a trip to Mexico. It can be whatever. And as we start looking at that, we have that most of our wants, they seem pretty generalized. So first of all, cut them down into small bits. What do you really want? You say you want security, and quite often that means people saying, I want money. So what do you want the money for? Is it really money you want? You want pieces of metal or pieces of paper in your hand? Why? What's it going to get you? Okay, look at what it's going to get you. What do you want it to get you? So skip out the middleman here. Don't make it be about money. And the same thing with security. What are you saying? I don't want to feel afraid. Okay, boy, you start asking for security, and right away the universe experiences step in that start taking away our fear. And what's one of the major ways of our fear being taken away? Fearful experiences. So, oftentimes, much better to cut out the middleman there and say, listen, I'd rather have the patience right now rather than learning to be patient.
Welcome back to Go Deep or Go Home with Debbie Lang and Catherine Whalen-Costin. It has been a while since we've done one of these Go Deep sessions and explorations. And it really feels timely because we're coming on to some really big planetary shifts and changes, and a lot of people are talking about it. So we thought now is a good time to go deep. Now, for those of you who have not listened to the shows in the past, Debbie Lang is an expert in tarot, in her own starseed blueprint, which is based on the Chinese five-element theory, and as well as her guidance from her guides and that kind of wisdom, as well as astrology and numerology. So she's got a lot of tools in her toolbox. So welcome, Debbie. Thank you for joining me for this chat to explore and go deep into some of this mystery.
It's always so much fun, isn't it? It's been a while since we've done this format, and I'm really excited. It seems like a really great way to start back on this path, and there's some big stuff going on out there in the stars and as close as the moon. So this is a changing times, to say the least. Good changes.
It is, and you say good changes, and it's important to remember that we are going through a time of change, and that it can feel really messy, even a good thing. Like if you think about it, just comes to mind is renovating a house. You buy a house, or you've owned it for a while and you decide to do renovations. It's not going to feel good while you're going through that mess. It is not. Ask anyone who's done it, they will tell you it is just not good. But you keep going because you have a vision of what's going to come after it. And so I feel like this is what we need to remember at this time on the planet.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy, because we are going through some huge shifts, and each shift takes us, it has to spread out through all the possibilities and parameters of how we live our lives, and the understanding of everyone. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work, is how I see it. All the gears and the machinery of this universe just keeps going on. And I am so amazed all the time when something new comes up, like a new understanding. And, oh, look, there's an astrological function that just completely supports the emergence of that in a really powerful way for us.
Right.
I heard it described before as, we're runners, we're hurdlers, actually. And we see these hurdles, going ahead of us into infinity. And we just start running, And each hurdle looks like it's immense, and we don't know how to get over it. But just as we get there, exactly what we need shows up and just floats us on over it, or floating us as ready as we are to be floated. I found myself, kind of kicking and squirming sometimes. Let me down. No, I'm not ready. But nonetheless, one way or another, one gets over the hurdles.
A lot of us are feeling the kicking and screaming parts of it right now. That is for sure. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. What is going on with this energy? So just so that, because people may be listening to this in the future, and this is June the 19th, 2018. And we are just coming upon some 3 supermoons. Am I correct?
Trio of supermoons. The first one was on June 13th. So that was about a week ago. And I don't know, I didn't realize that's what was coming up. But oh my goodness, when that hit, everyone I knew, and myself included, was just kind of inundated with strong emotional sensitivities in a variety of different ways, according to each person's type and tendencies. But it was there. There was a pattern that was powerful. And you were actually the one who sent me the link to figure that out. I did know that Neptune retrograde was coming up starting yesterday. It stationed retrograde yesterday. So that really, those 4 events, the 3 supermoons and Neptune just going retrograde, is creating a really powerful opening for us to cleanse, heal, rejuvenate, move forward in a very deep subconscious and also emotional way. We have lots of opportunities to work with our intellectual understanding, although it's my experience that usually comes after when we kind of, we go, that was what that was all about, 2020 hindsight.
Yes.
But these, these super moons, they're super emotional and super clarifying and super subconscious. That was really fun to say that.
It is fun. And the other part is they were super disturbing to the sleep. I mean, I'm not the only one. I've seen on social media, I've been talking to different people, and actually it was funny because the other night it was like 3 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock, and I just went to look on Facebook because I was awake, and I thought, what's going on? Why am I feeling this? And I couldn't believe the number of people who were awake and said, and it wasn't their daytime, because I do have people that are on other parts of the world, but this were people who were, they should have been sleeping, and they were pointing it out. It was like, why am I awake? Is anyone else out there? What's going on? And I thought, wow, that doesn't usually happen, because my sleep with the fibromyalgia and things like that, it does get messed up sometimes a lot, but this was different. It wasn't, it was like awake for, I didn't have the sense I was awake for a reason per se, but I had a sense, and I wasn't tired. I was energized, but it was the middle of the night. And so it made no sense at all. And that's what a lot of people were saying.
Yeah, I think we can kind of get used to having more energy at our beck and call, because certain things have been happening on the planet that we do have a building of energy and access to that building of energy in ways that has not happened before. So we're going to find there's going to be an abundance of energy, an abundance of time. So this is another thing we can start getting used to as time speeds up, as we move into this new Earth era, many things coming together. It's all part of a new way of being on the planet and a new way of being in the physical realm. It's a bit exciting, and who really knows where we're going to go with it. doesn't matter. You and I were talking earlier, and this is a point that I think is very worthwhile making, is that we live in the eternal now. When we're in physical bodies, yes, we are marking time according to aging and wearing out and new beginnings that we call past, present, future. But those are all part of the eternal now. The eternal now is not just the present, it's all of time. And as such, what that means about time is that any shifts and changes we make, we're making them in the present, but they affect the past as well as the future. So we know when we change something, the future changes, accordingly. We expect that. But the past also changes. We were talking about that idea that, I think it's a quote from a poem that when something tragic happens, our sadness can stain backwards. Well, happiness does that too. And change does that too. Yeah. And I know that for myself, I was making the point, both were making the point that when something happens, say a negative something, say something about a relationship, it sort of can poison or cloud or be uncomfortable for the entire past of the relationship. We start seeing people in a different way, clouded by how we perceive them through a difficult time in the present. And of course, our future in that relationship is probably changed as well.
Right.
But it's also good to see that if something good happens and we start for getting to know somebody or getting to know how to do something better, like learning a skill or something, that can change our past too, our past perception of things. And also, I think the past actuality is what I would imagine too. Just the same as the future actuality is much easier for us to imagine.
What is the big message here with this big astrological thing,
Well,
Debbie?
it's really interesting that the idea of a supermoon was, it's a pretty new concept. I mean, it's not a new thing because we've always had them. It's just a matter that the distance between the Earth and the moon, it changes according to orbit, according to time of the year, according to other things. So there's a range of distance, and it can make as much as a 14% difference in our measurement of the moon in the size of the sky. All right. So this is an actual measurable distance. It doesn't mean the moon is bigger. It just means it's closer. And of course, when things are closer, they seem bigger. That's all there it is to it. It's another apparent thing. But 14% is kind of a lot.
Yeah. And that would have a bigger influence on like the tides. And
absolutely. And because the supermoons are actually new moons, they're not full moons as such. They're new moons in this context. They are invisible basically to our naked eye because we are seeing the dark side of the moon, and the lit side, it's between us and the sun.
Right.
So that part of the moon's cycle of orbit, it is invisible to us. But it's happening because, yes, we're getting at this time what they might call spring tides, very large differences between low and high tide. So people along the oceans know that this is really a thing. And these supermoons make a lot of sense in that understanding. So there's also the opposite of that. There's micro moons and mini moons too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's just a little bit of science. Now, the astrological part of it is that the new moon is, it's an invisible change. So this is inner change, all right? This is heart change. And yes, incredible emotional sensitivity. Really big stuff. And when we get these emotional sensitivities, when we start in this trio of moons, the first one, in my experience, has taken us into the past, what didn't work in the past, leading us up to the present moment. And it's also time for us to recognize change and to allow our heart to change and to kind of let the emotions come to our attention. And I'd say that a lot of it is coming to our attention in the realm of the masculine and feminine. I mean, of course, because we're talking about thinking versus feeling. We're talking about the physical doing as opposed to the being. Doing, being, thinking, feeling. There, we are having those differences brought powerfully to our attention. It's like people are saying, I don't want to feel this way.
Right. Yes.
We have so much built up emotional crap, actually, because we don't deal with it. We push on and go into our life and do. And we're very poor in our culture in dealing with the emotional fallout of all the things that go on around us all the time, from the hugeness of birth and death to the smallness of everyday little dreams and hopes that go unfulfilled. Right. You know, from a sense of self-worth to those little daily frictions between normal human beings going on with their lives, you know? So the parameters of it are huge. And we're having that all come up. It's like, it's like getting a bad sunburn. You really notice how your skin feels when you got a sunburn. Right. So right now you really notice how you feel. And it is hard not to identify it with what's going on in the present. But most of it isn't. Most of it is stuff from our past and also the global past. Okay, the world past. Because these are supermoons, so they have to do with the whole world sees the moon, you know. So
exactly. And so maybe it's not, people think it's the news, it's the this that's bought, you know, that, and maybe it's
not that at all. It isn't that at all. It's old stuff. And we are processing a lot of old global, old earthly stuff because we can now. It's the time now because the feminine and the masculine are rebalancing. The alpha and the omega energies are really showing up again in a balanced way. Can we measure them? I don't know. But they're there because I'm feeling it. And everybody else is feeling it.
Yes, exactly.
So what does this mean? It means that a lot of people are having those questions come up. Why am I here? What's this all about? Feelings about, is this all there is? You know? So we're really getting in touch with that. It's also an inner time. A lot of people are feeling very private. We had a talk earlier about how private we're wanting to feel these days. Being aware of our responsibility to our privacy and other people's privacy. You know, the whole question of discretion. I mean, we are seeing legislation all over the planet to do with how personal information is being handled on the internet. Big thing right now.
Yes, that's right.
Very timely. So it's that inner outer. We're starting to be aware that our beingness is very powerful and very important. And we're having this opportunity to heal a lot of issues about our past beingness that we may never have really been aware of before this. And this is only going to grow. And this supermoon is that doorway.
Well, that was another trend that I am very aware of, which I'm probably more aware of because we have social media. But the one trend that I've seen for the last, like increasing, let's say, over the last couple of years is the sharing posters and messages and encouragement saying, I am enough, I'm worth it, I'm worthy, I'm, you know, and I don't remember my parents' generation having to say, like, they didn't say that. They just didn't say it.
No.
And I don't know if I'm not saying that they all had confidence, but it just didn't seem like
you had your, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
you're
very
wrong. Yeah,
true.
nice.
And what my understanding is those people who are, who study world trends and shifts in people's understanding, behavior, growth, places of concentration, what do we put our attention on?
Yes.
They are saying trend is growing and it will not stop growing. I've heard some of the wisest people on the planet come out on that and say this new age, new thought, this feminine energy, whatever we're going to call it, you can call it anything, but this way of seeing life as an inner and an outer is only going to grow and grow and grow. They don't see any shifting out of that trend in the foreseeable future.
But it's interesting that the trend is to claim our right to self-esteem, to our worth, each individually, and that we're encouraging each other. And also we are, at the same time, there's a lot of attacking people for there's that crazy, the news, the global,
some ways we're just becoming very aware of the attack. And as people move themselves out of traditional behaviors, they get the attack when others perceive them as not behaving in appropriate ways.
Right.
And there's also the awkward
of learning vocal on both, right?
Yes. So it of course these things always come up as both. It's like, get back in your job, get back in your position. What are we going to do if you're not taking care of your position? What do you mean you want to be more? I mean, this is, we've seen it with in our, in the last century, in every part of society, people of color, the gender issues, age issues, body size issues. It's all there.
Yes.
Sexuality in all forms. I mean, that is the trend, and that will continue, that the possibilities and the acceptance and the growth of people, they're just seeing no end to that. Good. So these super have come along to help us deal with the emotions that come out of that new awareness, that awakeness. It's like when it's like when we were young and our legs would get those growing pains. There were actual pains we felt as our bones lengthened and strengthened. And that's true of everything in life. There are growing pains as we become aware ourselves, and as we grow into, expand into new roles. It's going to be there. We need these supermoons to help us do that. Now, that being said, there are 4 signs that actually are going to notice this more. So there are 4 signs that are actually experiencing more of the effects of the last supermoon. That's the 4 mutable signs of Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. I'm not exactly sure whether those will be the same 4. In fact, I'm assuming that the next supermoon, it'll probably be the 4 fixed signs, perhaps, or the 4 cadence signs. But it doesn't matter. For this one, it's the 4 signs. However, the other point is everybody has those signs somewhere in their chart.
So these are 4,
in various different.
So these are 4 movable. Is that the word? Movable?
Mutable.
Or mutable. What do you mean?
Well, you know that Leo, Taurus, Aquarius, and Scorpio are fixed signs. Right. The opposite of fixed is mutable. And that is Virgo, Gemini, Sagittarius, and Pisces. More changeable, more adaptable, less likely to get stuck or to actually fix themselves less stubborn, let's say.
Yeah, okay, I get it now. You were just trying to be kind.
It can be kind or kind. It doesn't make any difference. Two sides of the same coin. So there's 4 other signs as well, and those are the cadence signs that actually are halfway between the fixed and the mutable. And that is Cancer, the sign of the mother, Capricorn, the sign of the father, Aries, the sign of the child, and Libra, the sign of the equal partnership, the balance. So there's three sets of 4. Oh, that makes 12. Anyways, so right now those 4 are really, those 4 parts of our own personal whole birth charts is where we will be experiencing them, especially if we have certain aspects in our birth chart that highlight that energy. That's pretty complex stuff. So that's some of the information about the supermoon. So,
and also, just so people know, if they want to go deeper on this on their own, you do private readings and exploration. And
I do, yes. And it's really very helpful for people to look at their own chart and know what's there for them personally. There's usually some pretty powerful information, and it helps us to be adaptable to what's going on in the changing energies of astrology. So what's really going on here with the supermoon is that we have been longing for change in our world. You know, there is probably very few people who have not wanted something to be different in their life. You know, it's a hard world we live in. It's hard to have enough abundance. Sometimes it's hard to have the career you want, the place to live, the standard of living. And that is where our longing as a generalized activity is going to move into what's going on through the supermoon. Our longing for change is going to shift what happens in the future. So the supermoon is actually a window into the future and the past for change. So just what we were talking about before, this is the process of change through these supermoons. This is where we and also as individuals have this opportunity to plant seeds in the dark of the moon and have them, and those seeds are all parts of our life, all the part of our longing. So this is a very good time to be aware of what changes we want and that we don't want to change, what we value. Divine discontent.
Yes,
Supermoon.
Yes, I just love that place.
Well, it's part of the human condition, you know. That is that the problem, you're taught to feel powerless, and so divine discontent becomes powerlessness. Truly, divine discontent could and maybe should be a way of recognizing when we, in our power as creative agents in this physical world, are ready to move to a new game, a new set of toys. You know, when we can let go of past and step into the future, whatever we want to create, where we don't have to struggle to create it. Our longing, combined with the powers of creativity in the moon, the supermoon, actually shift what happens on the planet in the future. Because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. It just seems like it unfolds the way it unfolds, but I believe that we are the agents of change.
Right.
You know, we are the ones we've been waiting for in that way.
So how long does the Neptune retrograde last, and how is it influencing along with the moons? Like,
about that, I want to talk about the other 2 supermoons, okay?
yes.
Because there's 3 of them. So the next one comes along on June 13th, and the one after that is August 11th. I'm sorry, June 13th, July 13th, August 11th, those three. We've already experienced June 13th. We have July 13th and August 11th coming up. And so we have beginning, middle, and end. We have the mutability of the beginning part where we get to change. We have the middle part where we get into the archetypes of what we really want. And then we have the ending that is August 11th. And this is cycles of new and full moons, of course. They work together.
Right.
So that's the backdrop for this summer, okay? Up until basically the end of August, that's the full moon. And the August full moon. So we can see that as 3 cycles of the moon, 3 orbits of the moon, more or less. And in that, we also have this huge cycle that happens every year. And that is Neptune going retrograde. Well, Neptune is currently in Pisces, and Neptune is at home in Pisces. So this is a very comfortable place for Neptune to be. It's aligned with the energy of Pisces very well. And it's, it's like, 160 days every year. So lots of people actually have Neptune retrograde on their birth chart. It doesn't have the sharpness and the obviousness of the inner planets going retrograde, but the outer planets actually have a much longer, gentler, more cyclical shift for us. It's just a time of year when we find we're more sensitive, go within in that particular area. So all the planets, all the outer planets and the inner planets go retrograde as a perceptual relationship with where we stand on planet Earth. It's a perceived motion, not an actual motion. Okay,
right.
But
the planet doesn't actually go backwards, right? Yeah.
It's very powerful for us here. So Neptune is actually retrograde 40% of the time, whereas Mars is only 9% and Venus only 7%. So those 2 inner planets have a much bigger effect personally, whereas the outer planets are more global experiences. However, because it's coming, Neptune retrograde is coming in conjunction with these supermoons. Yes. Neptune went retrograde yesterday, and it will be retrograde until November 24th, 2018.
Oh.
Every year. So there's a few things that happen when Neptune goes retrograde. We come face to face with our bad habits and our addictions and the places where we don't want to face the truths that we must face, okay? Where maybe we have some euphemisms for things and we have ways of avoiding dealing with things, money problems, food problems, healthy living, lifestyle problems, procrastination, overwork, all those things that are normal everyday things that we need to do, but we overdo or underdo them as ways to cope with our fears.
Okay.
And our fears come to the forefront, but in a kind of gentle way, especially since this year Neptune is in a very nice trine. Now, trine is a triangular form where it's in relationship this summer with Mercury and Jupiter. And that's a very helpful, very intellectually comforting and expansive relationship. So most of the stinging nastiness that comes with Neptune retrograde is alleviated by this lovely trine.
So there's something gentle.
The September, the supermoon, the first one, opened us up, and suddenly, shockingly, ouch, that hurts. I'm not supposed to feel. I'm not used to feelings. But Neptune then moves us into a retrograde before the second supermoon. And it has this lovely trine, but it too is about change. It's about change in a big way for the entire planet. A much deeper awareness of our emotions, our spirituality, our connections with each other, our connections with the environment, and our connections with our spiritual beliefs, however, whatever they may be. All right? We go within. We can be if we try to push ourselves through this, very easy to get irritated. This is time to kind of slow down more and take note, to pay attention. But because we have this great trine with Mercury and Jupiter, we also have a lot of optimism that comes with this, and good news comes along. So research, study, and socializing are highly favored. So, boy, summertime holidays, and also making plans for travel, long-term travel and short-term, also for using our good instincts and anything that's kind of future-orientated and positive, expansive. We maybe find our interest move to religion, law, language, and philosophy through this this retrograde. But another thing that comes up with Neptune that I remember talking about last year, there's this suspiciousness. Because we're so in touch with our intuition, the slightest thing can set us off balance with it. So we need to be paying attention, but also fact-finding. It's very likely that if our suspicions are triggered, there may be something going on, but it could be as simple as the other person or the experience being affected by this trend of more emotional experience, or something could be going on. You could find out something you weren't expecting, but now you have a suspicion about it. But it's a good time to remember to look for facts and to be patient and to not take the role of the accuser, the inquisitor, or, oh heavens, the torturer. Isn't that a funny word? That this is my research on the internet.
Well, torture is not as funny, and the word is funny, but the concept is not.
We really do torture ourselves with possibilities and with the pain that we're so unused to feeling of old emotions, rather than getting out of the way and letting it just pass through us.
And this is July 13th.
That's the next big supermoon, yes. But also, so those will be strong points, those dates, for sure. People will have personalized dates depending on their own charts, though. So don't be surprised. This is also the time of a depth when our roles as dreamer, artist, visionary, imaginer comes to the surface, and our longing for time to put into these pursuits that satisfy those parts of ourselves. Very important. And not to be pushed aside or ignored. There are longings for us to express ourselves in these very opposite, the other side of our brain.
Right.
To let go of our analyzing brain for a while and just allow ourselves to be in our visions, our creativity, our dreams, conscious dreaming, visualizations, yes. Very important at this time. Not to necessarily take things as factual ways, but to look at the symbolism, to look at the creativity, to understand the big patterns in our world. This is a time when we can be very much come into contact with that. So this is where we infuse our goals with our dreams. It's a good time to dream big and to have, to allow ourselves to go beyond our fearful small thinking, to imagine, you know, and not to put it in terms of when I win the $1 million. It's like, go beyond that. What do you really want? What's your longing for your life? What makes you feel valuable in the world? You know, what is waking up in you with these super moons?
What is waking you up at night? Trying to find out what that may be.
No kidding. So a Neptune transit softens us. And so we can take care to preserve our privacy, our delicacy, our intuition, by respecting privacy, by being careful what we say, by being aware that we have these deep natures that can be easily, that are very vulnerable, can be easily hurt as we become more sensitive. So we take care of ourselves with gentleness, and we allow other people and support other people in doing that too.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and being aware that other people have those sensitive,
yes,
vulnerable parts too.
Because right now, our ghosts are around us. I don't mean the ghosts, the physical, but the things that we're afraid of.
Right.
They, you know, and other people can see those things clearly, and we get in touch with them, so we can take care to comfort ourselves, because our fears will come up. And we will be taken probably through fearful experiences, not in any way that we've done anything wrong, but to come out the other side and experience healing of fears. So being aware that sometimes people go through rather tragic, difficult experiences at these times with extra sensitivities and really feeling pain. So for instance, let's say that you've had a like experience with somebody else that they're looking at as a tragedy. This is not the time to say, suck it up, buttercup. It's just, even though we sucked it up, even though we handled it, we have to be aware that these are the conduits that other people are exploring and expressing old and new pain. And that, you know, respecting that helps us respect our own process as well. This is a time of process.
Yeah, and that's a really good point too, though, for any time, is to be aware, even if you did go through something, even if you went through absolute hell and came out the other side okay, does not mean, I mean, each one of us is going to experience, you know, people talk about somebody got their leg gashed off and they didn't hardly, you know, say a word, and that person got a paperclip and whined for days. Well, you know what? Okay, but it, you know, that's an extreme, but at the same time, it's like, you don't know, everybody's makeup is different. Everybody's perception is different. Everybody's past experience is different. Everybody's different. And so we're going to experience life differently. And if somebody with a paper cut needs to cry for 3 days, let them. That's it to you. I mean, it's annoying maybe if you're around them for the 3 days straight, but you know, you can go fishing or something.
You know, and there's also that time to set appropriate boundaries with people. It's also maybe a time for tough love, but we need to be aware that there are ways of doing things without being
mean,
brutal. And it's a good time to learn those new ways. Nonviolent communication, you know, exactly. Negotiation, you know, we don't learn those things in school, but boy, do we need to learn them.
Yes.
So here, I'm just going to finish this off. Here's our several things to expect during Neptune retrograde, especially this one with the other and the trine that it starts out with Jupiter and Mercury. So number one, you are going to experience a big wake-up call. All right, so Neptune's dreamy edge often allows us to gloss over unpleasant truths, like credit card balances, etc. That's probably not going to happen. There's going to be a wake-up call in an area that we need to pay attention to. So you might as well bite the bullet and allow that to happen. We're going to really get into self-evaluation. So it's very important to recognize that there's techniques and there's assistance, there's support, and there's certain ways to bolster our sense of self-esteem and self-worth. Rather than getting into that very common downward spiral of self-criticism that doesn't help anybody. There's a big difference between facing the music, facing things, and taking on as something that talks about our personal value. They're two separate things. Behaviors are different than the worthiness that we are. And that's what we really can this time to practice. So we're going to experience spiritual growth one way or another. It just depends what our spiritual beliefs are. And that's nobody's business but our own. But there's going to be a call to go inward and find out our connection and, maybe exploring things about our beliefs and our having experiences that are out of the ordinary, coming across information that is contrary to things that we have learned or believed in the past. It is a time for that, so we can be prepared. We will have some important revelations. We're going to have to acknowledge some things that maybe we've been trying to ignore, or they're just coming to our attention now as something that is probably a blessing in disguise, uncovering harsh realities we may have been avoiding. Sometimes it's as awful as ending a relationship, but if it was a bad relationship, well, there we go. There's always things that we're going through that have endings and beginnings. And so this is the time to recognize that we can flow with that, because we're going to have to. Now, number 5 says we're going to feel motivated to get things done. Well, hallelujah. but there's also going to be times to do more and times to do less. This is really a place to get into the flow. It's not going to work to push the river, to try and get things done before their time to be accomplished comes around. So this takes a lot of sensitivity about what's going on, but we can also have a look at what in our life we've had to put off or we've chosen to put off, and how do we want to do it. When something's really big and difficult, well, chunk it down into manageable pieces. What can I do today? Or maybe what can I do this week? Or maybe what can I do this month? And we'll be able to plan for the future in a different way. Because we're healing the past, we're going to be able to be more in tune with our future. Healing our future and planning for our future means being aware of our longings. If something that we're trying to make work isn't working and hasn't worked, then maybe it's time to just surrender to that and allow it to slide out of our life, or to find a different way to do it. Be inspired, in a different way. There's all kinds of answers to that, but we will be making plans. So go big. Plan for what you really long for, not what you think you can achieve. I mean, you can always achieve what you think you can achieve, but you might as well go big with your plans and long for the best. And that's when the universe moves in to support us. And number 7 is the last, and we'll be able to understand things better.
Oh, that'd be lovely.
Yeah, we're really important to understand what we've been learning, but understand what we've been, the knowledge we've taken on, the experiences we've undergone. So we can be aware that that comes from inner connection. This is especially appropriate because there are some outer controls on the planet that have recently dropped away. When outer controls in any place, any culture, any workplace, or anything like that happens, people who are not centered and do not have an inner sense of themselves and where they're going, what they want. And I don't mean mere ambition for this. I mean a sense of who they are in the world. People can really fall apart if they don't have that sense, if the outer controls are taken off, as
and,
they have.
And that could be the reason a lot of people are sort of sitting in the, what's my purpose? Why am I here? Because
yes,
that was confusing to them. So that's been taken off. And so we should technically be in a period of maybe we'll realize why we're here and what our purpose is.
Well, at least start to get glimmers. So, or at least a different context for it than we've had in the past, indeed, you know, a different understanding. Because really, I think in the human experience, context is about all that we can really count on. Understanding the whole mystery, probably not going to happen.
No. But yeah, no, I didn't mean, knowing all the answers, all the questions that have ever been asked. But,
that's right.
Just to feel more, like you say, centered. And so if this has been incredible, and I'm thinking that if people want to work with you, I'll put Debbie's email right here, that you can contact her to set up an appointment and get her rates and all that stuff to discuss personally, privately. And the other part is to mention that Debbie does a regular radio show on the community radio station in Kamloops, British Columbia. And it's
CFBX 92.5 FM.
Right. And so you can listen to that live. You can't listen to it in archives. It has to be live, right? So
Mondays at 3:00 BC time.
Pacific time, yeah. So because people might be listening from different places in the world, and you always have such great information and relevant to the time or what's going on in the community, but also what's going on in the world sometimes too. So I really appreciate this, Debbie. I think it's been awesome, and I look forward to us getting together to explore more in the future.
Absolutely, going deep.
Go deep or go home. I mean, that just feels like it is the time for that. I mean, we really, a lot of us are wanting to do that, or even if we're not wanting to, we feel like called to get into more understanding of what's going on. So thank you very much, Debbie. And to the rest of you, until next time, take care.
And more. We are creating an exquisite world. Until next time, take care.